Okay, here we are at Robin's Nest, episode 6. Welcome to everybody. Thank you once again for all of your support. My name is Robin Kevlis-Nekowitz, and I am a licensed psychotherapist and parenting coach in Fairless Hills, Pennsylvania. And I am the author of a book called Go Take a Bath, a powerful self-care approach to extraordinary parenting. And I started this podcast to really talk about all kinds of topics that were very near and dear to my heart, which are parenting and politics and marriage and friendship and spirituality and feminism and food. And I just really needed and wanted an outlet to share all of my feelings. And I have all these wonderful friends in my life that I feel like I wanted to share with the world. If you listen to this podcast today and you think to yourself, where has this podcast been all my life? Please go and follow me on Instagram at robins_nest_pod and catch up on all of the other episodes. You can also watch this podcast and all of the podcasts on YouTube by searching Robin's Nest Podcast on YouTube. And with that, I welcome my guest this week, Mahan Rishi Singh Khalsa, who has been somebody in my life that has been a profound influence, whether he realizes it or not. We're going to be talking about that in a few minutes. He is a Kundalini yoga and meditation teacher in Yardley, Pennsylvania, also a chiropractor, and the name of his center is Khalsa Healing Arts and Yoga Center. And you can find him at, I believe it's Khalsa Healing. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay, khalsahealing.com. Please look him up there and sign up for some classes. So Mahan Rishi, thank you so much for agreeing to join me on this podcast. As I said to you when I reached out to you, I kept waking up through the night feeling like I wanted you to come on the podcast, but I wasn't sure whether you would be open to it. And I finally just decided to take a chance and email you. And I think you responded to me in less than 2 minutes, graciously offering to spend time with me today. So I'm so grateful. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Robin. It's a pleasure and honor for me to do anything with you.
Oh, thank you.
I love spending time with you and your family, with Larry.
Thank you.
You have a very, very, very special family, and I love how you live this life and the joy and the positivity and the optimism and visionary spirit you bring to it. And so this is a great joy for me to be a part of this.
Thank you. So I'm wondering if I thought about asking you to send me your bio and that I could, sing your praises. But I thought I'd rather you really talk about yourself, a little bit about who you are and what you do and what you bring to the community. If you could talk about that for a few minutes, and then I want to talk about what you've brought to my life.
Sure. Okay. Well, I think there's certain moments and certain things that happen in our lives that reorient ourselves. And I was born in northern New Jersey, Baptist, and I was brought up, with a sense of prayer, and it was a really important part of my upbringing. I was also brought up with my father. Took me out into the woods a lot, and we spent a lot of time in nature. And so my spiritual path really has been a combination of prayer and nature. And because I had such an affinity for nature, when I was 18, I decided, I looked around at the world and, just noticing the basic flow as high school, everybody in my high school was being funneled into college, then marriage, buy the house, work, develop your career, work,
Mm-hmm.
For like 40 years or so, and then retire 65, you have your golden years. Well, for some reason, it just didn't make sense to me to be doing something I didn't love for 40 years or so.
Right.
So I decided to take a different path. And because I had such a love for the outdoors, I took off. A friend of mine and I, we decided that we would take off and hitchhike up to Alaska. And this is back in 1973, before the Alaskan pipeline. the Alaskan Highway, which was just a small part of the journey, was 1,200 miles of dirt road. And so I say this because there was a surge of inspiration that came through me. Remember the moment I was in a chemistry class, totally bored in high school, and this thought came, go to Alaska. And I went to my friend Mike and I said, why don't we go to Alaska? And he says, okay. So, a couple weeks after high school, we're on the road for Alaska. And everybody says, oh, you're never going to make it. Why are you going to do that? You're a loser, blah, 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 blah. You're never going to go back to college once you drop out, blah, blah, blah. I ended up going to college for 9 years. Anyway,
Wow.
we,
Right.
we made it up to Alaska in like 2 weeks effortlessly. And to make a long story short, as a 18-year-old free spirit, I was up in Alaska, then I went down to Southern California and Mexico, eventually came back. I took off again up to Newfoundland. I was just, going with the wind. And I heard a statement that you can travel around the world 1,000 times and not know yourself. The monk can go into the room, close the door, and see the universe. Well, that changed everything for me. So I came home. I transformed my bedroom. I was in a suburban house in Livingston, New Jersey with my parents. I painted the whole room brown, the, the ceiling, walls, trim, everything dark brown because I needed a cave, right?
Right.
A cave if you're going to meditate.
Right.
And I took the beds, put them vertical on the walls. I took the bedspreads and put them on the ceiling. So it was kind of like a Middle Eastern cave. And I spent months just meditating and doing yoga from what I could.
And you were how old at this point?
I was 18,
Okay.
18 and 19. And then I eventually discovered the ashram, Guru Ram Das ashram in Princeton, New Jersey, where I moved in. I came down there in 75
Oh,
and
wow.
here. And so anyway, just hearing that statement that you can see the universe by going within turned everything around for me. And I realized it's not an outer journey. Ultimately, it's an inner journey. And
Wow.
so that's why I really have dedicated my life to meditation, yoga, and inner work.
Wow. Wow. Well, you know, I didn't know all of those details of that story, so I can't wait to re-listen to this later too and really take it in because all I know is that I met you many, many years ago when I had an office. My psychotherapy practice was in Yardley, and your center, your yoga and meditation center, was also in Yardley in the same development. And I don't even know how I got there. Oh, I think I do. I think something actually happened with my husband, believe it or not. I think he was, believe it or not, the first person of our family to go there. But then he didn't stay. And then I ended up going to a yoga class. And then I just fell in love with the energy of the space. That was my first love of all things Kundalini yoga and Khalsa healing and art center. I mean, for me, it was when I walked into the space of your center, I felt immediately calm. So then I started feeling like I wanted to spend more time there. And, so I started taking some yoga and meditation classes, but it really started with yoga classes. And there are very specific, there is no one in my life close to me that does not know about you because I talk about you all the time. I talk about you to clients constantly, and I talk about you to my friends because there are certain things that you have said, just interactions that we have had, just moments that have changed the course of my life. And I wanted to mention a few of them. And I may have told you some of them over the years, but I'm sure that there will be several that will be new. So one of them, one of the biggest ones that I remember was, and I'm very curious to know if you remember any of these things, is that when my office, I was purchasing an office in Makefield Executive Quarters, which is where both of our practices were. And the office fell through. I didn't, the sale did not go through. And I was devastated. I had already purchased everything I needed for the space. I had contractors starting the next day. I had already moved out of my previous rental space, and I was all ready to fulfill this dream of owning my own office. And I walked over to look at the space. It was right behind your center. It was right in the back. And I got a phone call from my real estate agent saying, that it's not going to go through, that the people owed more money than what I was paying for the space and the bank won't release the title. And I just became hysterical. I mean, it was just like a dream that was just gone. And I didn't know what to do with myself and I didn't know where to go. And I walked into your center just as a place to be. And I walked in and no one was there but you. And you were sitting at the desk and you were doing paperwork. And I walked in and I'm sobbing, sobbing, sobbing. And you like half an eye look up from your paperwork. You just like barely looked at me and you said, "What's up?" As I'm like hysterical. And so I tell you this whole sordid story and you're just listening. And then you just, with one sentence, say, "What a great exercise in non-attachment." Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Oh, you do? Good. Okay. And it really was, it was so, that was the only thing you said to me the whole visit, by the way. That's all you said. One sentence. I continued to cry and then I left. And so I had, because it was the only thing you said, it was the only thing my brain was circling around. What a great exercise in non-attachment. What a great exercise in non-attachment. And it just, that line is what got me through that, if we want to call it a crisis. At the time, it felt like a crisis. In the big scheme of life, it wasn't a crisis at all. But at that time, it was really meaningful to me. And then that brings me to the next thing. And I'm also curious to know if you remember this. I had something come up in my family that was very devastating. It was a big family secret that had come out in my family, and I was very upset. And all I wanted to do was go to yoga with Nirbakar. So I show up on a Friday morning for yoga with Nirbakar. Couldn't wait. Yeah, she's so nurturing and she's so soft and she's so loving. And I just wanted to be with her and be in class with her. And I walked in very upset, very emotional. And once again, there you are. You're the only one there. And I said, "Where's Nirbakar?" And you said, "Oh, she's traveling." And I said, "Oh, okay." Well, obviously everyone got the memo but me because I'm the only one that showed up for this class. And so I turn around to leave and you say, "Where are you going?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to leave. You're not going to have a class just for me." And you said, "Of course I'm going to have a class just for you." And I didn't know what to do with myself because, to be perfectly honest, I did not want to have a class with you. I have had classes with you before, and you are not Nirbakar. She is much more. You have you expect a little bit more in class. Let's just say that, with your keep up, keep up, keep up. So I was not in any mood to keep up. So I was getting the heck out of Dodge. I was leaving. And you just kept saying, "Oh, no, we're going to have class." And it was just you and me in this class. Do you remember this? You can't remember that one, do you? That, what?
I don't remember that one.
Okay, that one you don't remember. So I go upstairs to class. It is just me and you in this class. And I am so uncomfortable because I am not that flexible and I'm not going to be able to keep up and I'm not feeling emotionally well. So we start the class, just you and me, and I just cried. I just cried the whole class. And you just kept going. You just kept, doing the class. You didn't really acknowledge my crying, but I don't remember what you said. I shouldn't say you didn't acknowledge it. You didn't directly address it, but you were aware of it. And I was aware that you were aware of my sadness at that time. And it was just a feeling of love and of holding space for me to just feel whatever I wanted to feel, and that I was important enough to have this class just by myself. It was another moment of just of a deep appreciation for you and for what you bring to the world. And I have five more, but I'm just going to say one more because we have so many topics to get to. But one time I took a yoga class with you, and I was in the back of the class, and this one was a very crowded class. So there was a lot of people in this class, and I was in the back. And once again, you were asking us to do something very, very challenging that I couldn't do. And I got really angry with you in the class. And I said something to you so wildly disrespectful in the middle of this class. Like, I said something like, well, why don't you do that? And I'll do it if you do that. It was something like putting your leg behind your neck or whatever. And I immediately, as soon as the words came out of my mouth, I was so embarrassed that I had allowed this to escape my mouth. And and you just looked at me, and the look was not one of resentment. The look was not one of anger or frustration or, oh my God, what's wrong with Robin today? It was just love. You just, instead of being offended by what I had said or if you didn't choose to become defensive about what I said, instead you just chose to envelop me in love. And that's the energy that came at me all the way in the back of the room, not anything else. So for all of those things and so much more, I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for all that you have taught me about the neutral mind, which has been something that's been a a cornerstone of my practice. When people are like, I'm trying to stay positive, I'm trying to stay positive. And I'm like, the goal is not positive. The goal is neutral. It is what it is. So I just wanted to thank you for all of that before we move on to today's topics.
Thank you, Robin. Well, it's totally a mutual blessing,
Mm.
and to share this space with you. And I appreciate the resonance that we have. And you are the same. You're a great inspiration for me and a great inspiration for others. And I
Thank you.
think that a lot of times we're not aware of how we do help one another, and our impact, and
Yes.
it's I think
Yes.
helping each other all along
Yes.
the road.
That's why I do. It's always been important for me to tell you some of those things because it's just been something that I go back to over and over again. And even today, whenever I am struggling with anything, a lot of times I'll just transform myself into the space of your center. Just because truly the energy of your center is so healing. And when my office was in the same parking lot as you, I used to have my clients go over and sit in the lobby. Really. I would just say, after a difficult session, I said, can I recommend that you just go over to the Khalsa Healing and Art Center and just sit in the lobby and just feel the energy of that space? Because it was so healing, and many of them did. And they all reported the same thing. So, I just thank you so much.
Thank you, Robin. I appreciate
Sure.
that.
Sure. So I want to move on to our topics and one of the reasons why I so desperately wanted you, of all people, on for this, the Sunday before the election, although in transparency, for transparency purposes, I want everyone to know that we are recording this on October 23rd. So who knows what will have happened from October 23rd through the Sunday before the election. But this is going to be broadcast on the Sunday before the election. And there is so much anxiety going on in our country. It's palpable. I can't go anywhere without feeling it. And I often think to myself, what is Mahan Rishi feeling? How is he managing this? Because I can't imagine that you're not feeling the stress of this, but maybe I'm wrong. So I'd love to know how you're feeling. And I also would love to know how you're coping.
Okay, well, a couple of things. I wouldn't say I'm feeling the stress of it, or
Okay.
I don't feel like I'm coping either per se.
Okay.
I see this as an exciting adventure, actually, and as huge opportunity for myself and for all of us. I think, we have the combination of this election, we have the combination of COVID, all these different social, cultural, environmental shifts that are happening. And I think there's something really profound that we can tap into if we allow ourselves to be quiet enough and not be caught up in the frenzy of it. Um, there's so many things that are vying for our attention now, and, from many different aspects of society and life. And I think that each person needs to establish a strong inner presence of being that is peaceful and content. And from that place, we can have some clear way of working with this, and clear way of discerning what is actual, maybe reality. I think, there's so many ways to view things, and there's so many beautiful people with very opposing and different ways of seeing it. And I think for myself, the process is not being caught in the projection of people or things, but actually um, sensing the inner beingness that's within all of us. And even though views are extremely, I feel, antagonistic to even moral and social justice, and healthy ways of navigating, I think it's really, there needs to be people who are not reacting to the projection, and realize there's something deeper. There's a backstory, there's reasons why people believe certain ways. I'm not necessarily right because of the way I believe. Um, that there is a common humanity that we can relate to. And I think we all need to somehow pause and look deeper and see within, this apparent chaos, that there's some beautiful unfolding that's happening ultimately.
Mm.
And so I think that the thing to be aware of, is how things appear, and it appears a certain way, but the reality is much deeper. And to be able to find that place within that relates to a common sense of unity and oneness, rather than all this fragmented ways of seeing things that create the polarization, and create the dissonance, and create the duality around things. Um,
So
you
you
know,
don't feel, do you not feel fear?
no
You don't feel fear. Hmm.
fear of.
Well, I mean, I can only speak for myself. As a Jewish person, I feel afraid. I feel that, this president has brought out um, this very ugly side of humanity. And so I struggle. I agree. I understand what you're saying, and I live in that world at times. I don't live in it anywhere near as much as you do, of being able to see the bigger picture, understanding that we're in the middle of a process. Like, I'm very clear about that part, that we're in the middle of a process, um, and that in many ways this is an awakening for the world and for our country. But then there's this other part, this human part, that is just every day waking up afraid. Like, I have a bumper sticker on my car. Does that make me a target? I have a sign outside. Does that make me a target? When people find out that I'm Jewish, does that make me a target? My gay and lesbian friends, or my Muslim friends. Um, there's just a fear that is also present for me, while I'm also trying to always come back to that center part that you're talking about, that inner peace. And I'm just wondering how you manage. It sounds like you don't manage it at all. You don't feel those things.
Yeah, well, I mean, living in the world as I have for decades now, as an American Sikh with a beard and turban and white robes,
Mm-hmm.
walking through airports after 9/11,
Yes.
et cetera, et cetera.
Yes.
I realize, I can be a target, and I have been a target at times, but realizing it's a huge opportunity for um, connection and education, let's say. I've had people, all kinds of energy coming at me, of course, because of how I look.
Mm-hmm.
People don't even know me, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so it's a learning lesson for me, realizing, okay, people don't know me. They see me and they associate me with Osama bin Laden or Taliban or whoever, and they associate terrorism, they associate fear, etc., with me. And I have the opportunity to shift that perception with me, which may affect their perception of others. And also, I realize, I just can't function in the world that way.
Mm.
I realize what this has enabled for me is to see the angelic universal quality of beings, and to not allow myself to get caught in projections.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I were to live that way, I'll be like, just, barely ever going outside. And so yeah, I just, made that shift really years ago to relate to the possibility of understanding and oneness.
But when you say like they don't know you and you have an opportunity to maybe change their perspective, their perception because you are very different than what they think you are, you don't have that opportunity if you're just walking through the airport. They're just projecting onto you whatever they think that you are, and that at times your safety can be at risk.
Yeah,
You just choose not to think about that part.
no, because it's presence. People will look and they'll feel for, people, 99% of the people I'm with in the world will never have a conversation with like
Right,
this, about our beliefs and things.
right,
But it's a presence, and people
right.
get each other really
Yes,
quickly a lot of times.
yes.
And when I was in the airport after 9/11, I was amazed. Literally there was Time magazine, Newsweek magazine with Osama bin Laden's picture right on it. I'm walking right by it, these stores with white robes and everything. And the people in the airport, I had absolutely no negative energy at all. And the pilots and the crew members, attendants, were literally outgoingly friendly to me.
Wow.
And so I realized that a lot of it is a state of consciousness and present,
Mm.
and people will get it. And when I first went into the airport, I think, oh my goodness, this is going to be like, I'm going to have thousands of people look, bearing down on me with anger. And
Yes.
well, first of all, there was nobody there. Um,
Right. I know. I traveled right after 9/11. I was one of three people in the airplane.
yeah, yeah. But then once I got out to New Mexico, there were, thousands of people traveling. And anyway, I realized that my fear was not necessary of going into that airport. And then, the energy that transpired after that was really beautiful.
Yeah. So what do you suggest for those of us that are not at that place yet, and who are feeling so much stress and anxiety? I mean, I can't walk out my front door without someone coming over to me and talking to me about how stressed they are. Specifically, they're stressed about the outcome of the election, regardless of the outcome, and especially fearing that people are going to take to the streets with guns and all that kind of stuff. How would you respond to somebody like that? And I'm wondering if anyone has talked with you about that,
Well,
their
people need,
fears about that.
yeah, I have heard it, but I think people need to shift their attention. I mean, that's the current drama that's happening. So this drama, there's going to be another drama in, 6 months or a year from now, and then there'll be another drama. Um, People need to relocate their attention. And our thoughts and our visions and things require our attention for their survival. If we continue to focus on that, we're going to perpetuate it and inflame it. If we begin to focus on the possibility here, the energy will shift. I mean, it's the same thing with relationships. People tend to oftentimes focus on the conflict and just be wrapped up in the conflict and the struggle of the conflict, rather than seeing the relationship as if it's already healed. If we
Mm,
focus on the relationship as if it's already healed, and the same thing culturally, then we're going to bring a whole different energy to it. And we're not
yeah,
going to put ourselves to unnecessary stress, because a lot of things that people worry about just never happen anyway.
true.
Probably 90% of the things people worry about never happen. One of the most wasteful ways to use a person's mind is to worry.
Yes. It's hard though.
Uh,
It's
it-
really hard. I don't consider myself a worrier in general. I'm not a worrier. I talk in earlier podcasts that one of the reasons I chose to do this podcast is because I'm an overfeeler. I'm not an overthinker. I'm not somebody who thinks and ruminates over things a lot, but I'm like a walking nerve ending. I'm feeling things every minute of the day, and I don't always know what to do with all those feelings, and I find myself overwhelmed, lately, especially as it relates to the state of our world. I'm scared.
yeah, well, again, it's a refocusing of attention. at the end of the year, we generally, or the beginning of the year, end and the beginning of the year, we generally have a gathering. And so the gathering is to bring people together to honor and have gratitude for the last year, and also what are we bringing to the next year. And so what I've done over the past number of years is, being there's been some real tragedies at the end of years, going into the next year, some major tragedies. And so people's attention can be really consumed by that tragedy and struggle with that. Or we can begin to look at the positive. And so what I begin to do is look at, there's actually hundreds, if not thousands, of positive projects that are happening in the world that are affecting hundreds of people, thousands of people, millions of people that you just never hear about.
Yeah.
And so all the attention goes toward the negative when there's all these positive things happening. And what we want to do is fuel the positive.
Which explains why the energy in your space is always so clean and clear, because you're always focusing on all the good that is happening in the world, and why, you have this peace picnic every year on the Sunday of Memorial Day weekend. And I always joke with you that that's the only thing I put in my calendar at the beginning of every, because I still have the paper calendars. I don't use the phone calendar. And I get my new calendar and I go right to that weekend and I put it in. This year it was on Zoom, but I was there. I was there on Zoom.
I remember.
Yeah. Because it does remind you and it brings you back to that place of peace, which I think peace is more important than happy. Peace, I think, is the goal more than happiness.
Yeah, I think that people don't need to walk around with so much stress and anxiety unnecessarily. I mean, um, why torture oneself around that when we can put our energies in much more productive places that are going to be more helpful for ourselves and more helpful for others, rather than constantly being fueled by all the negative in the media and all the negative stuff. I mean, it's just becoming a very addictive, neurotic thing of just constantly watching all this. And, we need to get back to the quiet, back to the stillness, and back to nature and those essential parts of ourselves.
Yes. Do you watch the news at all?
I do. I check in.
Okay.
I mean, I check in periodically. I'm not a news fanatic.
Right.
I do like to just have updates about things.
Yeah.
I don't watch it obsessively by any means.
Yeah. And it's funny you should mention nature, because my wedding anniversary was last weekend and we were doing some things together as a couple. And one of the things that I had said that I really wanted to do is I like to hike. We both like to hike. And typically we just go to the area places to hike, like Washington Crossing State Park, which is beautiful, or Tyler State Park. But I wanted something different. And we ended up going to Nakamixin State Park, which was stunning, first of all.
Beautiful.
Stunning, beautiful, beautiful place, totally worth the drive.
Yeah.
But what was very interesting to me, and my takeaway from the day, was as we were driving through uh, Central Box all the way into Upper Box, and seeing every Trump sign, Trump, Trump, Trump. The closer you got to Nakamixin State Park, the more Trump signs there were. So I was a little concerned, I have to be honest, when I got to the park, that I was going to be hiking among people who I do, who I feel currently afraid of, just to be blunt. And not only did I not have that experience, I had the exact opposite experience. I was blown away. What you were just describing about how the flight attendants and people were treating you after 9/11, when you were afraid that it was going to go one way, but it went the polar opposite. That's exactly what happened to me in the park. Walking. It wasn't just the usual head nods of acknowledging your fellow hiker or biker. It was people saying, "Hey, how are you? How's it going today? Oh, thank you so much for letting me pass. I hope you're enjoying this beautiful hike." I mean, above and beyond
Mhm.
friendly.
Yeah.
I walked out of there with a completely renewed sense of of
Mhm.
humanity. And so I put it on my list to do as often as I possibly can, to remind myself. And when you get away from all the politics and you get away from all the noise and you do go into nature, it just brings you back to that quiet space that you're talking about that we all need.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I think once we remove all this cloaking of belief systems, um, we return to our true nature and realize there is a common thread amongst all of us. Doesn't matter if you're Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, Vegetarian, Rastafarian, Unitarian, Presbyterian, whatever your thing is. Underneath all of it is a sense of oneness. And that's one reason I love going to the beach.
I
Because
love the beach
I
too.
remember one year I was down at Belmar, everybody, there was Muslim, Eastern European, there's Jews, there's Sikhs, there's Blacks, there's Asians, there's everybody
Yes.
just having a good time.
Yes.
And who
Yes.
cares, what your belief system is, what your ethnicity is, or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, not to beat a dead horse, but I have to ask this one final question about this, and then I want to move on to a couple other topics. But on election night, you're going to be in your home in Princeton Junction, New Jersey, and you're going to be feeling fine.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to be feeling fine, regardless of the outcome.
I'll be excited.
You're going to be excited.
Yeah, I'll be excited.
And if the election goes, let's just say, to Donald Trump, how are you going to feel?
I'm moving.
Me with you. But will you feel afraid that people are going to be coming out or not?
No. I mean, coming out.
Coming out, onto the streets with their guns and all that. You're not afraid of any of that on election night. I'm asking you to put yourself on election night, and God forbid that happens.
Yeah, no, I mean, people should, in terms of those thoughts, people should be more afraid if Biden wins.
That's what I meant. Oh, I'm sorry. That's what I meant. I meant if Biden wins, that Trump supporters are going to come out into the street. That's what I meant.
Well, that very well may happen, but I think it's, this stuff can come out, but it will be temporary. We have to realize.
Okay. Temporary. So that's the word.
We're going to move through a temporary
that's good.
convulsion, let's say. I mean, if Biden wins, he's got a huge energetic thing he has going to have to work with. I mean, he's got all the social, political, COVID things to work with, but he's got an energetic thing that he's going to have to work with really skillfully to balance, which I think is the more difficult aspect of this. And
yes,
hopefully he and his staff members are going to have the finesse to work with these energies in such a way that doesn't perpetuate the conflict and the convulsion, but can simmer things down in such a way that things can be workable. We'll see.
Yes. So that's very helpful, I think. Remembering that whatever we go through that night or in the nights to come after that this is temporary and that this is going to pass like everything else passes.
Yeah, it all does, right? It's all
it does. It does.
So much of our unnecessary struggle if we realize everything's transient.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So there are a few other, but before we leave politics, one of the other topics that's directly related to this is I'm curious if, and you sort of have answered this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Have any of your relationships been affected at all as a result of the political climate?
Not really.
No?
No, because we don't focus on that part of it.
Okay.
There's so many different types of relationships to have, and so there's so many other places to connect rather than just politically. I mean, just because I believe a certain way doesn't mean I'm right. I mean, I think there needs to be a whole nother perception of belief systems and political stances on things, and there's I think there's another understanding. So I don't let it get in the way. I look.
That's amazing.
I think it's important to look deeper. To We're so much deeper than our belief systems, and of course, our belief systems seem to be really important in how we navigate and such. But I had a great lesson on my own mind when the last election, when Melania Trump came out to speak, back in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
She comes out, right? And my mind goes, okay, here's this really ultra glamorous woman, ultra rich, and she comes out to talk, and she's also married to Trump. So, my mind is kind of going there, just judging her a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Then I just keep watching her, and I realize, okay, here's a woman who's trying to support her husband. Here's a mother, and my mind just keeps shedding the projection onto her. She's Republican, she's this, she's that, blah, blah, blah. I just keep dropping that, and I just realize, okay, she's a mother. She's trying to do the best for her family. She's a woman. She's a being. She's someone who inside of her is much deeper than all this drama around her. And I could just see her as a human being.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a really important place to come to, is looking at the places within ourselves rather than so much trying to shift anything externally. Because I look at the place within myself that's caught in the judgment, and I need to remove that before I can have any clear perception of anything.
I hear that, and that all makes sense to me. Where I get stuck, and where I think a lot of people get stuck, is that it's hard to move past the part when you feel like your safety is threatened. And I think that a lot of people, especially minorities, feel like their safety is threatened. So to find that depth of compassion, that's how I hear what you're saying, to find that depth of compassion when you're feeling that this person wants to hurt me in some way. And you may say, well, Melania might not want to hurt me, but she's supporting an administration that is supporting a larger reaction in the community of people who do want Jews to be gone, gays to be gone, blacks to be gone. And so it's very, very hard for many of us to go that deep, to be able to ignore those parts and to just see them as struggling people. Because I can tell you, as a therapist, I get it. I understand Donald Trump is a very wounded individual. I completely understand and have sympathy and compassion for the little boy he once was, and what the needs that he didn't get met, and how this happened. But as adult people, they are doing enormous damage. And those of us, and I would consider you as well, because of the way that you show up in the world, like you were just saying, in terms of what you look like, it's very, very hard for, those of us that feel physically threatened. I have a brother who I don't speak to, that I lost contact with in 2016 when I found out that he was supporting Trump. And he's a QAnon member, so he's somebody who believes in all of those conspiracy theories. And I don't know how to move. I don't know how to move past it. I know so many people in my practice have lost relationships with loved ones over this. And what you're saying, I really hear it, and I want to live it. But I'm just being really honest, and I think I speak for a lot of people that this has challenged them to the core of their being because they feel so unsafe. What
Yeah.
would you say to those people?
Well, if you were to be with your brother, and your brother was on his deathbed, and you were next to him, I'm wondering how you would feel about it, because I went through this with my brother. My brother was a temple of contradictions. I mean, he enlisted in the Marines, went to Vietnam, spent 13 years in the jungles, um, then came back. Well, he went to Woodstock, super long hair, drugs, everything. And for years continued to be a Republican supporter and Trump supporter.
Mm.
He and I were very alienated for like 20 years or so. And then as I opened my heart around it, actually. We came together and developed a good relationship. And then I was by his side when he's passing, and all I could feel at that moment was love.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing other than love. And I said to myself, what took me so long to get here?
Mm-hmm.
And so, um, people, we're all kind of like crazy, and we have all these belief systems and things that we identify with as real. And yet there's a core essence that we want to relate to. And so I think it's like I said, it's a matter of where we're placing our attention. And people can go out into the world and be worried and stressed, or else, what? I was down in Philadelphia one day. I went into Garland of Letters. I don't know if you know that store.
No.
It's been a new age bookstore there for like 50 years.
Okay.
Great vibration. I walked out. I came out. If you know um, South Street, it's quite a wild street, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I walked out on the street, and all I saw was like 2,000 angels.
Wow.
And I wasn't like 2,000 angels with wings. I just saw, these are beautiful beings.
Yes.
With all types of
Yes.
different belief systems. And what happened for me was a transformation in my inner being, so that I came outside and I was able to see that way. I think we all have to look at ourselves. So
Mm-hmm.
it's really where it begins. And people are walking around burdening themselves with a lot of unnecessary thoughts.
Yeah.
And these thoughts can translate into reality. So um, people should be mindful of how they're thinking about all this.
Yeah. I I, I just first I want to go on record as saying that I feel nothing but love for my brother, and I pray for him every day. I don't I guess the way I think about it, which is a little bit different than maybe the way you think about it, is that you can love somebody, but sometimes you have to love them from a distance because the relationship feels toxic to people. And so one of the things that I do in my practice is help people disengage from toxic relationships, but it doesn't change the love that somebody has. It's sort of like death is the end of a life, but not the end of a relationship. And the same is true, I think, when you have an estranged family member or friend, that sometimes the relationship doesn't work anymore, but the love that you have for that person never changes. I love my brother as much today, if not more today, than I have ever loved him before. But I also know that I can't have a conversation with him. What are we going to talk about?
I'm sure there's common ground somewhere.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think what happens for all of us in certain relationships is that we let a particular issue or thing consume our awareness rather than other parts of ourselves. And there's a lot of common ground. I hang out with a lot of people who are, if they're Trump supporters or Republicans or whatever thing they're into, is totally different than mine. I mean, we're usually hanging out with people who are different than us in many
Mm-hmm.
ways, and there's a lot of common ground to talk about.
I agree, but I go back to, and then I promise, going to switch topics. But I agree with that, and I think that has always been true for me up until Trump. I mean, I've had many Republican friends, and I love to debate them. Actually, it's a lot of fun, and I feel nothing but love. The sticking point for me that I think is where you and I are getting stuck is the threatening feeling. I never felt threatened um, when President Bush was president. I didn't feel threatened with other Republican presidents. And I don't feel that those people were trying to get rid of me. That's a really hard pill to swallow. To be able to hang out, as you say, with people who, well, it doesn't sound like you believe that they want to get rid of you, but I know that there are people out there who don't want Jews here anymore and don't want blacks here anymore. And I have a hard time finding common ground, as you say, with those people to just, well, let me just put that aside and let me just love you anyway and be in relationship with you anyway. How can you do that when you feel like that person doesn't believe that you have a right to exist?
Yeah, but you don't even necessarily have a sense of love for them. It's just not being preoccupied with that thought. There's been people who wanted to get rid of Jews and blacks and gays and whatever for, forever. Now, yeah, now they have a stronger voice and stronger presence around that, but that's been
Yeah.
here for many, many years, and who knows what's next.
Yeah.
I would just be, I think it's really healthy to shift one's attention from that because we don't want to be walking around with that reality, and we can shift it. I mean, through our presence, we can shift that reality.
I don't know. I don't know. I think that while it's true that it's been here forever, it's not been, um, I haven't known who they all are in the way that I know them now. That's been the hardest part of this time for me, is that I didn't know what people believed to this level. And now that I know, I can't unknow it. And I have a very hard time getting past it. And it hurts. I mean, I don't, that's not who I am as a being. I mean, I am somebody who um, really embraces people and, loves the differences, because I love to talk to people and I love to hear another perspective than my own. But it's very, very difficult when I feel like these people want to hurt me and people that I love. I can't get past it, but I'm going to listen to this podcast over and over again, and I'm going to see if there could be a shift there. But I think that a lot of people are really struggling with that. I wanted to switch gears. You mentioned your Sikh religion, and people see you in this white turban and this white robe and your beard, and they don't really understand why. Why do you wear it, and what does being a Sikh mean? So I was wondering if you could just take a few minutes and talk about that.
Sure, sure. Thanks, Robin.
Sure.
Well, it's just been a part of my growth and evolution as a human being, and it came really through meditation and yogic practices to understand that each human being, has the ability and capacity to embody the divine and embody our higher consciousness in whatever form that is for us. And so this is the form it's taken for me. It's going to be a different form for different people. Um, well, being a Sikh, I mean, the word itself means a student or a disciple. So it's one who just keeps learning and keeps growing and is devoted to spirit. And so the idea of, um, seeker means seeker of truth, and also, um, one who relates to spirit within all things and all living beings.
Mm.
And through my yoga practice and all, just realizing also that we come from this light. We are the expression of light in this physical dimension. We're an expression of celestial sound. And so we come from white light. And so wearing white is a reminder of me of where I've come from and where I'm going, and an expression of that radiance. White light is the embodiment of all the colors and the sense of unity, sense of purity and illumination. Um, so yeah, I mean, that's basically, back in the 60s, it was like, okay, let's just get out of here. Let's take a trip and go into the 15th astral dimension, get out of this earth plane. Well, what we're realizing now in this newer age is that we want to embody and incarnate the sacred, and that there isn't separateness, that we can actually incarnate that energy into the planet. And
Yeah.
so basically the form that I wear is my journey of trying to incarnate higher consciousness on the planet.
Wow. Okay. Thank you. Thanks for that explanation. Um, yeah, I think a lot of people, I know people, who I have sent to your center often come back and ask me these questions, and I have not really felt like I've had a good explanation. So thank you for that. Um, we only have two more quick topics that I want to go through. Not that they're quick, but if you could just talk a few minutes to food for a moment. I really want to talk about food because a lot of people, and I am raising my hand as one of these people, turn to food as a way to cope with what they are going through right now. Some people turn to alcohol, some people turn to prayer and meditation, and some people turn to food and specifically sugar. And I know that you have a lot of thoughts about that. I wanted you to speak about that for a few minutes. And I really want you to speak to how people can get off of this sugar train. So whenever I try, especially since I knew I was going to be speaking with you today, it's been in my mind a lot, and I definitely have an addiction to sugar. And so I'll have a conscious thought that I am not going to have sugar today. Just today. I'm just not going to have sugar today. Well, I don't get through 3 hours before I'm running to get my peanut butter tasty cake out of the freezer because my body just starts to go quickly into withdrawal. I start to panic, and the only thing that's going to calm me down, or so it feels in that moment, is sugar. And I thought, I'm not going to let you go today without you speaking to that.
Oh my goodness. Well, Robin, we could talk all day about it.
I know, I know.
That's one of my favorite topics, right?
Yes.
About sugar. Well, it's an amazing experience to be totally off of sugar. It's very, very, very rare. So I grew up on tasty cakes and crimpets and Twinkies and Coca-Cola, and my parents didn't know. I ate all that stuff. I ate a ton of it, and I would get bronchitis like every other year and sore throats and headaches and everything. Then I went to yoga. Well, actually, people were saying, "Oh, just have your tonsils out, have your tonsils out," because I was getting sore throats all the time. And I was talking to the yoga teacher, and I told the yoga teacher, I get these headaches, I get sore throats and everything. He asked me, do you eat sugar? I said, yeah, I eat sugar. He says, well, why don't you keep your tonsils?
I remember this story. I remember you talking about this one time in a meditation class. Keep your
Yeah,
tonsils and lose the sugar.
yeah. So anyway, so that made a huge difference when I let go of processed sugar. So I made a quantum leap going from processed sugar to, let's say, honey and maple syrup or whatever. So then, after a number of years, I realized, well, it's probably a good thing to let go of these others as well, because it's a highly concentrated sugar, and it's really unnatural. You're never going to see a squirrel out there putting sugar on its acorns
Mm-hmm.
before they eat it or whatever. Humans do it. We add all these other things to our food, which are really out of balance. And so when you're adding honey or maple syrup or agave or whatever, it's stressing your system tremendously, because whenever you put that in, the pancreas has to secrete the insulin. The insulin carries the glucose into the cell. And so you're constantly stressing your pancreas. And over time, it's just going to get exhausted. So anyway, I began to let go of all sugar other than fruit. And I highly recommend eating fruit. It has a totally different impact on your sugar levels, being it has fiber and everything with it. And I found my brain, everything functions totally differently when I'm not adding these concentrated sugars to my diet. So,
How do you recommend people make that shift?
well, there's a number of reasons why people are eating the sugar in the first place. One reason is because of stress, because when there's stress levels, the brain feels like it needs the glucose, right, to function. And so one way is to first identify the stressors and begin to quiet down the stressors, so we're not overactivating the sympathetic nervous system, which is activating the pancreas to secrete, the adrenals to secrete. And so that's important. Also, just drinking more water. If you think sugar, breathe deep. Take a few deep breaths, because all these cravings are temporary. All cravings are temporary, and they do pass, and they'll return, but they're going to return due to different conditions that we're creating within ourselves and within our world. I would remove all the tasty cakes from the house.
Was going to bring them on to the podcast. I just was like,
Yeah, you got to just get these things out of the house, because of course there's going to be a temptation, and we all have stress times, right? We all have it.
How do you deal with the withdrawal symptoms, like the headaches?
It's temporary. And that's a really good, important point. You're not
Well,
going to you're not going to get withdrawal symptoms from stopping eating apples or stopping
mhm,
eating broccoli or carrots or cherries or blueberries. It shows that that food is a toxin,
yeah.
just like coffee, right? If coffee wasn't a toxin for people, you wouldn't get headaches when you withdraw from it. You're not going to get headaches if you withdraw from apple juice or carrot juice or something like
Right.
that.
Do you eat bread now? I know there was a period of time you didn't, then you did. Do you eat bread now?
Very, very, very rarely.
Okay.
Yeah, very rarely. I would recommend people get away from bread because that increases the sugar levels. People don't realize their glycemic index shoots up a lot with bread products, pasta, and things like that.
Wow.
The gluten, all that destroys the intestinal flora and creates a mess out of things. A lot of inflammation, acidity, mucus, depression, foods. If people can work on their foods, it's going to shift their state of mind. So it is a cycle. You want just really healthy food around your house. So I go for raisins and nuts and things like that. And, I have a lot of berries. Blueberries, strawberries, blackberries. I eat those. And, ultimately, you're not going to find what you're looking for in life in your refrigerator.
Really? I thought maybe I could because that's where I go looking for it for sure. All right, we have to switch to our last topic because I don't want it to keep you anymore. COVID, and I'm not going to ask you to talk about COVID, in general, but I'm curious to know two things. One is how you're personally managing COVID, how you think about it, and also how it's affecting your business because you have had a lot of in-person classes and meditation, and I'm wondering how you're doing that and if you're keeping up with your chiropractic practice and all of that. So how are you handling COVID?
Yeah, well, COVID is a great opportunity for us. It's a great opportunity for all of us who can see it. Of course, people are continuing to be very busy. People can be on Zoom or online or whatever. But it is a pause from our everyday um, abnormal lifestyles, and we're going to have a new abnormal pretty soon. And we want to just realize, okay, this is an opportunity. Okay, what I feel in a lot of people is like they're in a limbo state, waiting for things to go back to the normal,
Yes,
and
I agree totally.
it's not going to go back to the way it was. And to hang out in this limbo state is going to create more frustration and more unease for people. So I see this period as a great opportunity for pausing and reevaluating, uh, reassessing our lives, and cultivating a greater sense of stillness, a greater sense of connectedness with others, with family and friends, and
Yes.
visioning. I mean, this will shift. I mean, it's going to be different, but the COVID thing will diffuse over time. And then we'll be back into lives and society and all. So it's a great time to vision.
I
I think
agree.
I think it's a great time to really get clear on what's meaningful for
Yes.
people and to be true to yourself and to really move in that direction.
Yes. And what I see in my practice is it really has allowed people to slow down. And for that, I'm so grateful. I think that COVID is going to be seen as a blessing if we can get a little further away from it. Because it really, as you said, exactly, it is helping everybody reprioritize what's most important to them and letting everything else fall away with ease. Another Mahan Rishiism that happened to me years ago was we were in a meditation class, I think it was, and you were talking about life isn't supposed to be like a stick shift, like that you're not like moving with harshness, in between gears, but that things are that can move smoothly if we kind of put our oars in the boat and just let the current take us. And I think that COVID is a piece of that. And I can see much more than I can see it as it relates to the election. But I'm right there with you with COVID. And how are you doing your practice now?
Well, we were out of the practice for about 3 months.
Okay.
totally out of it, out of our center. Then we came back into the practice with chiropractic and acupuncture, massage. We continue to do all of our classes online currently.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, we don't have any classes in the center at this time. One reason there's been the Zoom classes, I realize it's better in person, but the Zoom classes have created a great opportunity for people to come in from all over the world now.
Yes.
There's been a lot of students who have moved to different places, and so we can connect. And also, I'm seeing the great opportunity that now there are millions and millions of people who are bringing yoga and meditation into their homes, and they're creating their own sanctuary, their own space for practice. And it's wonderful. You see the pets are there, the kids are there, and there's all this energy happening with yoga and meditation in the home. And
Wow.
also, it's been great because we a lot of our meditations go from 7:30 to 9 o'clock at night, and then people have to jump in their car and drive all the
Yes.
way home. Now they can just relax and go to bed or whatever.
Wow.
So
Yes.
we've continued to do them online. We look forward to being in person again when that happens.
Okay. Well, I think we have covered everything, Mahan Rishi. Thank you so, so much for being here today. And everyone can reach Mahan Rishi at khalsahealing.com. And you
Yeah.
can sign up for classes there. And I highly, highly, highly recommend it. I cannot say enough about Mahan Rishi and his beautiful, beautiful wife, Nirbakar Khalsa. These people, just to know them is such an honor for me. And anyone really that has ever met you has said the same thing. And I've sent many clients to you over the years, and everyone walks away from any encounter with either you or Nir Bakar a changed human. So I thank you for not only what you've been for me in my life, but also for who you are in this world. I'm so grateful that you were born, and I'm so grateful that you're here in this community.
Well, thank you, Robin. I feel mutually for you as well. You're a lovely woman with great wisdom and heart and soul and spirit, and I honor the deep feeling that you have in life, and the passion and the soulfulness that you bring to it all. And you've raised an amazing family, a beautiful husband, Larry, and what you folks bring to the world is also admirable.
Thank you. And I want to remind everybody that you can follow my podcast on Instagram at robins_nest_pod. And next week, after the election, my guest will be Barbara Simmons from the Peace Center. She was the executive director at the Peace Center for 30 years, and she is an amazing, amazing woman. And I'm super excited to talk with her next week as well.
Mhm. That's great.
So, yeah. So, with that, I thank you, Mahan Rishi, and I will see everybody next week. Sat Nam.
Thank you. Satnam, Robin. Much love to you. Love
Much
to everyone.
love. Much love to you.